And we have reached the end of the first day of our summit. And in closing, we have a very interesting conversation with the CEO of OpenBet, Mr. John Levin. Mr. Levin, thank you for being with us today. We wish you were here live, but we can discuss virtually here. I have a few questions for you. And first question is, OpenBet recently featured one of the largest acquisitions in the gaming sector. What kind of strategy or advice can you pass on to us from your experience from this acquisition? And what does this acquisition mean for the OpenBet investment in Greece?
Absolutely, and I'm glad to join you virtually, and regrettably cannot make it across to Athens for this wonderful event. Just so the audience is familiar with OpenBet, the business that I have the privilege of running. It's the largest provider of software and platform technology for the legal and regulated sports betting business worldwide. We have major market positions in all over Europe, in Asia Pacific, and in North America, with entry strategies into more markets as well. OpenBet was recently sold, or plans to be sold, for $1.2 billion from the current owner, Scientific Games, which is a multinational lottery, gaming, and casino business, to Endeavor Group Holdings, which is a major media, sports, and entertainment business. It's a very interesting transaction, as you have a business like Endeavor, who's the buyer, who's really a prolific media, entertainment, and sports business in data, in event production, and in other types of endeavors, no pun intended. And really what they're doing is they're moving across the continuum into participating more directly in the global phenomenon, which is around legal and regulating sports betting. It's a great platform and way for them to expand. In terms of going through the acquisition process, the lessons that we learned, I'd say the biggest lesson that we learned, and I would advise any business owner or any business patron in any industry to be mindful of this, is to keep your options open. And that seems really simple. But we kicked off the process to sell OpenBet about 6 or 7 months ago. At the time, the IPO market was pretty friendly. So our primary focus was to spin off and IPO the business. And we were moving down that road, and in this sort of capital raising process around that, and it was moving, but we kept the door open to a strategic buyer, which ended up being Endeavor. So this was positive for our board of directors because it created a more certainty transaction, higher degree of cash versus equity, and really created sort of with a friendly buyer like Endeavor, where there's a lot of positive synergies, created a positive reputational outcome as well. So those are some of the main lesson would be optionality, and in this volatile world, of capital markets, would be to keep your options open.
Thank you very much. Are you considering Greece an attractive international investment destination, and why?
Yeah, so one of the great things about OpenBet, Greece is actually our largest center. So I have about 1,100 team members globally for OpenBet. 80 or 85% of those team members are involved in software and technology. And Athens is actually our largest development hub in the entire portfolio. We have, out of the 1,100, we have about 350 people in Athens, and we have growth plans to continue to invest. We're actually one of the largest employers of technology workers in Greece. So yes, so obviously you're looking at somebody who's a very positive vote of confidence in the Greek market. I think there is more and I would urge Greek government and influencers to be mindful that there's always more that can be done. When you look at the amount of foreign direct investment that's coming into the country, it's growing significantly. I think in 2020, it grew like 75 or 80%, and that's great growth. But still, if you compare Greece to other European countries on a per capita basis, it's actually still quite low. So, when you're thinking about things like business taxation, labor and employment laws, and allowing employers to have a fair amount of flexibility that's fair, those are the types of things that I think that Greek government influencers could be encouraged to continue to do. to encourage folks like OpenBet and other technology companies to invest in the country.
Well, this is good to know, since we have in the next few days some panels, discussions with the Minister of Finance and Minister of Development. So I think it's good to have these tips on how we can develop further, the sector. Speaking about Greece, and since you told us that the largest portion of your employees are here, actually, that comes to my mind the question: how can the gaming industry contribute to the Greek economy?
Yeah, so I think and the gaming industry within Greece is alive and well. It's a well-regulated business. I think taxation is fair, and I would encourage the Greek government to continue what it's doing, to encourage the investment, be mindful of the regulatory frameworks. There's a balance between allowing gambling in a legal regulated way, but not going so overboard where companies can advertise. So one example could be there's certain European countries. The UK is an interesting one. The UK has been sort of the most open betting and gaming business country in Europe for quite some time, but allowed sort of widespread advertising through literally every medium, and it became too widespread. So then the government over the last few years had a reaction where it changed the regulations to really start tightening things, banning advertising in the name of consumer protection, which is very important. So it's important that the government, when it's considering its policies, strikes the right balance between multiple factors like taxation, like regulation, like protection for consumers, to sort of get it right optimally. And that would be the key trick that the Greek government needs to strike, so that it has a vibrant gaming business. I would also encourage the government, again, to encourage more companies and more investment on onshore product development and R&D, which is obviously good for the Greek economy in general, keeping the knowledge in the country, continue to provide benefits for businesses that are investing in Greece, and keeping engineering talent in the country, and also maybe even encouraging engineering talent from the region, from the Balkans, for example, to come to Greece as a key hub. One last comment I'll make about Greece. It's pretty cost efficient for us. It's cheaper than most Western European countries, but we get the same level, in some cases even better, in terms of R&D and technical know-how. So I think there's really a good knowledge base there, and I think the government can be doing even more to encourage companies to base themselves in Greece.
Well, this is great to hear from you all this, let's say, positive things about our country. How the pandemic was impacted the gaming industry, and to what extent?
Yeah, so multiple factors here. So early on in the pandemic, listeners might remember that sports fixtures around the world, outside of a few small examples, were virtually shut down for 3 or 4 months. So there was no football, there was no basketball. There was really a significant cutback in sports fixtures. So there was a pretty big immediate impact. I mean, for OpenBet is a sports betting business, and our customers, who then have the relationship with consumers, are sports betting businesses. And obviously, if there's no events running, the ability to generate income was completely cut back. So there was an immediate, in the very short term, it was a negative from a sports betting perspective. On the wider gaming perspective, and this is an interesting trend, you saw, and it holds true now. Once sports fixtures return, people are locked down. A lot of people are taking more cautions with going to retail establishments, to casinos, to pubs, maybe spending more time at home. So you saw a major shift in digitization within my sector. So you had a lot of people that maybe before didn't have a digital account with OPAP, like in Greece, which is the major sports betting brand, then was encouraged to sign up. Consumers were encouraged to sign up accounts with online operators like that. And what's happened since sort of the brick and mortar establishments have opened back up, there's now a big advantage that operators have, sports betting operators have, to having that omni-channel experience. So consumers who maybe before were only interested in going into the retail shop registered for, became digital consumers, but they also still have loyalty to the brick and mortar. So there's now a big advantage. Again, I go back to somebody like OPAP, which is a well-known brand in Greece. They have a big advantage over maybe some brands that are only accessible online, because they can now carry the consumer experience through the offline in the shops, in the lottery and the retail shops that they run, and through the mobile device. So that's the biggest change that we've definitely seen during the pandemic. I'd say the second thing, and I know there's a separate discussion, actually another one of my colleagues, my head of our Athens office, Nikos, who's speaking in a couple days on a panel, is talking about return to work. So that's the second thing. We saw that we were able to, because we're a digital business, we were able to very seamlessly adapt to a work remote type of a situation. And even now we've maintained a probably 50 to 75% of our team members on any given day are working remotely. People start to rotate into the office, but it's very much of a hybrid model that we've adopted. And if you would have said that to me before the pandemic, I would have said that would have been impossible. But we've proven that it is possible, and it's something that our team members want, and we find quite efficient as well, doing a combination between live and remote.
Sure. Speaking about technology here, and since you are one of the major, let's say, developers for the gaming industry, what is the potential of the gaming industry in the future in relation to the rapid development in technology? I mean, we see all, new platforms coming up, new, let's say, gaming applications coming up. So what is the future? What do you see in the future coming up, in terms of new developments?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the gaming industry for about 16 years, and, no one would ever accuse the gaming industry as being a technology leader. It's typically a technology follower. And the reason for that is regulations. We're one of the most highly regulated businesses in the world. So, stepping outside the box and trying something new that hasn't been proven is often not encouraged. I'll give you one great example. Only now, really in the last year or so, have our regulatory agencies around the world had started to allow us to operate in the cloud from an IT perspective. Now, for technologists that are in the audience, that sounds like something that's been around for a long time, but it's just starting to come into play in the gaming industry. The regulator mentality, for example, for that is, well, if it's not in a physical infrastructure and I can't actually go and touch and see it, then, how do I know that I have control over it if my job is to make sure that this remains a regulated industry? So historically, gaming has not been one of the most innovative industries. I do think that can change, though. I think that there's a lot of things that we can do and that the industry is doing in terms of borrowing from other industries, gaming especially. So other industries have done very well with, gamifying the consumer experience, making it more interactive, making it more interesting, making everything into a game. And there's a lot of things that, the industry is doing with respect to those. Another example is something like esports. Esports is, very big on the horizon, massive fan bases, but it really hasn't become a betting experience yet. And instead of just making it a betting experience like you would bet on a football or on a basketball match, try to do something innovative with esports and the way that maybe you can, bet on your favorite teams or your favorite participants.
Well, you mentioned before about the young people and being hired by the company, but also just before you mentioned that you are a follower. I mean, the gaming industry follows the development in the technology. So in that respect, can we connect the gaming industry with digital skills, and in what way? Can we have new kids coming up and developing new platforms, new applications, or they have to go by the regulation framework all the time?
Yeah, I mean, look, for us, it's all about working with the regulators and educating them. So we're constantly educating regulators in every country that we do business, or in every state, province, et cetera, about what these different technologies are and what they can do. So that's really the key. And then the sports betting and gaming industry in general is very dynamic. There's a lot that's being done on the cutting edge. Markets around the world are putting legislation in place are regulating. So it's a great opportunity for young people to join what is absolutely a growth industry that is going through a significant amount of, dynamism and change. I think with going back to sort of where we started the conversation, if you look at Endeavor Group's acquisition of OpenBet, Endeavor Group is a, sports media and entertainment business. They're not a betting business. So when you think about how you can combine some of the things that they do, for example, around event production and around, celebrities that they might represent, and around certain, sporting leagues that they own. For example, Endeavor owns the EuroLeague, which I know is very popular in Greece and Turkey, for example. There are things that we can be doing with our technology, their access to media and entertainment, and the right innovators in our business to really create some unique experiences for the better that have never been done before. So I think there's a lot that's going on in the industry that makes it a very dynamic place, and I think it's a great place for young engineers to cut their teeth and really affect that change.
Speaking about young engineers, how easily you can find people in Greece to hire? Is it becoming a little bit difficult?
It's always difficult. I mean, right now, I think everybody knows, and I don't think there's any market in the world that's exempt from this. There's a massive demand and a massive shortage of technology workers around the world, really of all types of workers. I mean, that's something that we've seen, post-pandemic in many industries. So listen, for us, in the markets that we decide to, be, strategic hirers, and it's about, having the right leadership. It's about, having the right brand and the right reputation in the market as well, and having the right network. One thing I've learned about Greece is that it's very much of a networking society. So a lot of our hires actually don't come from formal job postings or job fairs. We do that, of course, but a lot of it comes through just networking, reputation, and word of mouth. Somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and OpenBet has become a pretty good brand name in Greece as well as that. So we have a pretty steady flow of candidates, coming in the door because of that. That's a hard thing to achieve. We've been in Greece for, I want to say 12, 13, 14 years. This didn't just happen overnight. We took a risk a long time ago to get into the country and invest, and we see the benefits of it now. But it is a very competitive market for especially for engineering talent. There's no doubt about it.
It is, yes. In closing, I have a question regarding the future. And can you provide, with your experience, a picture of the future in the gaming industry? I mean, where do you think this will go?
Yeah, I think the future is where most governments around the world will legalize, tax and regulate betting and gaming, bring it out of the sort of gray markets to the extent that there are, to the extent that a country has gray markets. I think that, there will be less brands available also. I think consolidation will continue to be a major factor in the gaming industry. Again, as regulation comes in, as taxation comes in, that's good for the industry, but it also becomes sort of a weeding out process. So you'll have less brands and as a result, less suppliers. So I think consolidation will be a major move. And then I think just again, as digital platforms continue to evolve and innovate, you're going to see more innovation from a user experience perspective. I think there are things that teams and leagues who right now haven't really gotten involved directly in sports betting can do in the future. I don't see any reason why again, I'll use the EuroLeague example. I see no reason why EuroLeague can't have a direct relationship with its fan base to have a sports betting experience that maybe also brings other non-sports betting benefits with it. I really think that that's where the future is, as fans become more digitally savvy, and as a lot of these teams and federations have the ability to create these sort of omni-channel experiences for their fans.
Do you see by any chance any consolidations in regulation frameworks in between countries? Is this something that might be feasible in the future?
Listen, it happens informally already. Typically when, I'll use the US as an example, because the US is where you have the most activity in terms of new markets that are regulating. There's not really huge differences. Like when a new state puts regulations in place, there's very seldom major differences from most of the other states that have been put in place. So there's informal networks that sort of, inform this. The same thing happened in Europe. Europe went through a massive wave of legalization and regulation several years ago. You had some that stepped out of the bounds and did things in a completely different way. But a lot of the countries, like for example, the Nordic countries, when they all sort of put their frameworks in place, they all look somewhat the same. So it happens sort of on an informal basis already. And, that's informed by, sort of industry. We have, certification agencies within the industry that typically, provide a level of governance across all, which consult with the governments.
Well, Mr. Levin, I really appreciate the discussion we had. Thank you very much for being with us, and hopefully see you soon in Athens and having this conversation in live. Again, have a good evening. I don't know whether you are in Tel Aviv or somewhere else in the U.S.
I'm in the U.S. Unfortunately, I'm grounded here. Yeah, so I'm in the U.S.
All right. Enjoy your presence there. So thank you very much again, and see you soon in the future.
All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.